Welcome, and thank you for joining me. This presentation is entitled The Most Important Lie Ever Told. And God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven. The heavens declare the Almighty of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork." Now, for thousands of years, this was considered the truth. Simple, making perfect sense, covering it all. It also showed the true divinity of mankind. It proved that we were the center of the universe. We are God's children, made in his image and special. Then we went to kindergarten. One of the first things we learned there, literally, was that the earth was a globe and not stationary. The earth rotated around the sun, and therefore a child could understand that we were not the center of this grand creation. The Bible was wrong. How is this possible? Nonetheless, growing up Catholic, I was mentally able to discount one of the most simple truths, one of the first truths told in the Bible. Able to discount it as an accident, a misunderstanding. And I continued to believe the biblical texts. Now this is illogical. This is cognitive dissonance. And this would eventually make it easier later on in life to discount what was said in that book. I mean, if one of the first truths, the first basic truth in the Bible was wrong or untrue, then that the earth is not flat, and the other basic truth, the earth is not stationary, is also wrong, then what else in that book is not true? As we traversed upward through middle school and I guess close into high school, we were told that there were hundreds of trillions of planets, very similar to Earth, and that they also rotate around the sun. And this confirmed that humans are not special in any way, just one of hundreds of trillions. Again, debunking the Bible. I couldn't dispute it. They showed me the math, all of the fantastical numbers and equations and measurements, etc. We tilt on our axis at 66.6 degrees. We're spinning around the sun at 66,600 miles an hour. And the sun is supposedly spinning through the universe close to 666,000 miles an hour. We know this because of those aristocrats and those noblemen from the time period known as the Renaissance. Copernicus, Galileo, Descartes, Kepler, Newton, etc. It basically begins with Copernicus. His theory is a linchpin of it all. He developed the theory of Earth orbiting its sun in a circle. Problem is, he was wrong. And soon after, that needed to be fixed. Enter Galileo. Galileo concluded the planets, once set in circular motion, continue to move in circles forever. Therefore, Copernican orbits do exist. However, a guy named Kepler realized that there was a real problem with planetary motion, and he sought to solve it by appealing to the one force that appeared to be cosmic in nature, which was magnetism. A magnetic force, Kepler argued, emanated from the sun and pushed the planets around in their orbits. But he was never able to quantify this rather vague and unsatisfactory idea. Now, they didn't go public with that, and it didn't become public knowledge. So Galileo never acknowledged Kepler's ellipses rather than Copernicus's circles, because to do so would have meant abandoning his solution to the Copernican problem. So Copernicus was wrong, and they knew it through Kepler's work, which wasn't yet common public knowledge, but nevertheless, Galileo went ahead with his flawed theory of planetary orbits and presented it as fact to the public. Now, by the end of the first quarter of the 17th century, Aristotelianism was rapidly dying. This is the Aristotle method. What do you call it? His theory. It was rapidly dying, but there was no satisfactory system to take its place. The result was a mood of skepticism and unease. For, as one observer put it, the new philosophy calls all in doubt. And it was this void that accounted largely for the success of a rather crude new system that was proposed by René Descartes. But before we move forward with this, notice that there was skepticism from the public and from other scientific people in the scientific community with regard to these new theories. They said that these new philosophies calls everything into doubt. Why? I have a feeling because none of it worked at first. It would take years and much collaboration to get the numbers and the theories all coordinated properly. And the time of their official consolidation was coming soon. And we'll get back to this in a moment. Matter and motion were taken by Descartes to explain everything by means of mechanical models of natural processes, even though he warned that such models were not the way nature probably worked. That's from Descartes. They provided merely likely stories, which seemed better than no explanation at all. Again, let all that sink in. This is amazing. This is from Encyclopedia Britannica. I'll read it again. Matter and motion were taken by Descartes to explain everything by means of mechanical models of natural processes, even though he warned that such models were not the way nature probably worked. They provided merely likely stories, which seemed better than no explanation at all. Just throwing some raw meat out there and see if the dogs will eat on it. The 17th century was a time of intense religious feeling. Again, from Encyclopedia Britannica here, a lot of this information. The 17th century was a time of intense religious feeling. And nowhere was that feeling more intense than in Great Britain. And thus, the demons had to maintain the concept of God, and what a better way to do so than to use God to explain part of the hypothesis which could not be explained. So, in Great Britain, a devout young man, Isaac Newton, was finally to discover the way to a new synthesis, in which truth was revealed and God was preserved. You see? Now it would be commonly accepted because they brought God back into it again. Well, here's why our theory works. We can't explain this, but it's there, and therefore it must be divine of some kind. And reinserted it in to make it work, and I'm talking about gravity. Gravity, Galileo more than once hinted, was direct divine action. Newton hinted was direct divine action, as were all forces for order and vitality. So as you can see, science is never settled in fact. Science is never even right. While it's right during certain periods of time, they're always eventually proven wrong, and when this occurs, a new theory and a new set of numbers are created until they can make it all work. Just see Galileo providing a theory that he knew wasn't right, but then sometime later, it could be worked in. Again, from Encyclopedia Britannica, the voyages of discovery brought back a flood of new botanical and zoological specimens that overwhelmed ancient classificatory schemes. The best that could be done was to describe new things accurately and hope that someday they could all be fitted together in a coherent way. This is from Encyclopedia Britannica, you guys. All these discoveries brought a flood of new botanical and zoological specimens that overwhelmed the classificatory schemes and systems. So the best way that could be done was to describe new things things accurately and hope that someday they could all be fitted together in a coherent way. This is how it's done. They're telling you right here. That's how their theories are done. That's how everything. That's how their classification was done just now. As I read, that's how it is. They put it out there and they make it work later. The history of this time goes on to say that info began to come in at an accelerated rate, and no one person could assimilate it all. And so here's the Hegelian dialect. So they had governments set up societies in an attempt to coordinate and establish a common order with regard to all this new information that was coming in. First, with the Royal Society of London for the promotion of natural knowledge, created by Royal Charter in 1662, and then the coup de grace, the Academy of Sciences of Paris, formed in 1666. Now this is big. This is when we lost control. This is giving the keys of science to corrupt monarchs, essentially for them to control it all, and they've done a great job ever since. They became the gatekeepers of almost all of the world's information, including the most important information ever. And there's that 666 again, 1666. Just like we saw with their numbers in their globe theory, right? With regard to Earth's axis and the speed along with the sun's speed. How are these numbers possible, ladies and gentlemen? 66.6, 1666, 666,000. Anyone else find this odd? Way too coincidental? I'm afraid, dear listeners, that these people are simply telling us who they are. They're letting us know that they can make the numbers and thus the theories say anything that they want. They did this through Newton's work on mechanics. The final touch to the Newtonian edifice was provided by Pierre Simon Marquis de Laplace, French fella. He masterfully systemized everything that had been done with regard to celestial mechanics. Under Newton's inspiration, Laplace's work on mechanics in the early 1800s, he went beyond what Newton did by showing that the perturbations of the planetary orbits caused by the interactions of planetary gravitation are periodic, and that the solar system is therefore stable, requiring no divine intervention. So this could be looked at as the nail in the coffin of God. This was it. The nail in the coffin of truth in this world, actually. This was, in about 150 years, they were able to take everything we knew and completely flip it upside down and invert it. And the last straw was mechanics, because then they could actually put it all in and then eliminate God and have the numbers. Now, it took 150 years to get it all worked out right. You guys follow this? Basically, you throw the theory and you stick to it, even if it's proven wrong. You don't let anybody know it was proven wrong. And you continue to plug in new numbers and new everything until it finally works. Now, while most of the world was on board with this psyop, many still didn't budge, probably filled with religious conviction, or were wise to the psyops, maybe even, that these people have been conducting for centuries upon us. But when the Industrial Revolution was in full swing, it had one very important effect on the development of modern science. The prospect of applying science to the problems of industry served to stimulate public support for science. Again, that's a quote coming from Encyclopedia Britannica. And so, just so you see, they use their new science to fix an industrial issue or two, and the sheep will all fall for it, and a love affair begins. A love affair that would catapult these techno demigods, these science priests, into a position similar to God, a technocracy at least. And to this day, it allows them to dictate whatever they want to us in the name of science. We just saw all this a couple years ago. Humans have a savior complex. And these fake scientists, these charlatans, they use their sorcery, their semantics, and they make you believe that they are somehow divine, and their legacy and their proteges continue pushing it all along to this day. Remember, Copernicus was wrong. Galileo lied. Newton tried fixing it, and it wasn't completely right either. So enter Albert Einstein. He had to make Newton make sense. And so with the help of the controllers of the time, he did that. But that too would only last so long as technology progressed. Even Einstein's theory began to fall apart, just as Newton's before him and Copernicus before him. And so something big and something different was needed this time. And the only thing that would keep their lies afloat was the invention of dark matter. A force that nobody can see or measure technically, but we know that it's there because it has to be there, because if it's not there, then Einstein's theory doesn't work. Does this make sense? It's got to be there for Einstein's theory to work. We never saw it. We didn't know it was there. We can't measure it. But it has to be there to make it work. It's almost like something from nothing, which that theory eventually says. There's nothing, and then boom, there's everything. Again, I've already said it, but it's almost as if they build the theory and then just continue adding to it as it falls apart, keeping it above water all along the way. They've been doing it at least 400 years and could honestly, seemingly do it forever given the amount of world control that they currently have. If you enjoyed this presentation, please like, share, and subscribe. And we're going to do another one now that we've got this basic understanding of the PSYOP in place. And now we're going to go into some of those theories in the next video. And we're going to break them down, and we're going to see if this stuff is right. We're going to look at curvatures, and we're going to look at a lot of different stuff. And it'll probably be more than just one more follow-up video. We're really going to dive into this.